Joining us now is David Weinstein, partner at Hinshaw and Culbertson. He's also a former assistant U.S. attorney. Always good to see you, David. Thanks for coming in.
You're welcome.
And let's start with this hush money payment, which the president initially said he knew nothing about. We just saw the video from Air Force One only a month or so ago. Lying to reporters on Air Force One is not a crime, but is the president in any legal jeopardy here now after admitting that, yes, he did repay it?
Until he makes a statement under oath and it contradicts what someone else either shows to be or believes to be the truth, he's not helping himself, but he's not in any real legal predicament yet.
So Rudy Giuliani joining the legal team, the president's personal legal team recently. What is the strategy here, legally speaking? Because clearly they've shifted the strategy.
I'm trying to wrap my head around that. It seems very odd. First you deny having any knowledge of the payment, then you say, well, if it was made, it wasn't my money. And now his lawyer and now the client himself says, well, it was repayment and reimbursement. It was connected to legal fees. Yes, it had something to do with it. Unless you're aware that the government investigation has some document that's coming out that's going to show there was a payment received, there's no reason to make that statement. It's not helping you. If anything, it's showing that you're tending not to be truthful to the American public. And that can't help a client at any level.
Is it possible they're just trying to get out in front of it?
I think that's the only thing they could possibly be trying to do. But to get out in front of what? So if there was a payment that was received from Trump in his personal capacity to Cohen as his lawyer, that's not a campaign contribution. It's not a violation of campaign finance. It's a payment from an individual to a lawyer who's representing him. If you didn't make a statement under oath that contradicted it, you don't need to get out in front of anything.
David, there was a report earlier today that Michael Cohen's telephone had been wiretapped. Now the reports we're hearing is that his phone lines were being monitored, but not exactly a wiretap. What can you shed some light into that?
So the first report was a full-blown wiretap, and that means that a judge has probable cause and they're listening to the conversations. Now it's been backtracked to say they had what's called a pen register. That's a device that captures numbers that you're dialing off of your phone. It works with something else called a trap and trace device that measures numbers that are coming in. Those are used as precursors when you're beginning your investigation because you want to develop enough evidence to get probable cause to enable yourself to get a wiretap. All you need to show a judge for a pen register is that it's relevant to your ongoing investigation. Were they at their early stages? Were they spinning this off from some other investigation that they had? We don't know. But what's clear is they weren't actually listening to the calls. It may show that there was a number that dialed into his phone and that number belonged to an address on Pennsylvania Avenue, but we don't know who dialed the number. We don't know what was said. We'll know how long the conversation was, but not the content.
How does all of this fit in or not to the Mueller investigation into Russian meddling in the 2016 election?
Everything that we've just talked about and everything we've heard and all the accusations, those stem out of a separate independent investigation being conducted by the U.S. Attorney's Office in New York. It really, quite frankly, unless someone is going to make a statement that's contradictory to what Mueller is investigating, it has nothing to do with it. Mueller found some information. He passed it off as he's required to do because it doesn't touch on what his investigation is. And now the people in the Southern District of New York are looking into it. Their first target of that investigation is Michael Cohen. What stems from there is anybody's guess.
Also anybody's guess what's going to happen next, how the developments are going to pan out. But do you think we're going to see the president sit down with Mueller's team voluntarily? And what about all this talk of a subpoena?
I'm not a betting man, but if I was, I would bet against him sitting down. He's the worst type of client you could ever have. You want your client to follow your advice, to not answer questions in a long-winded fashion, and based on the questions we all saw they wanted to ask him, if you allow this individual to sit down and answer those questions, he's going to, in some way, shape, or form, commit perjury. And you just don't want that to happen. So it's not going to be voluntary. Is it going to be a compelled interview by way of a grand jury subpoena? It sure seems that way. From the change of lawyers on his team outside and inside the White House, to the posturing everybody's taking, to reports that Mueller has in fact thought about issuing a grand jury subpoena, maybe that's what will happen. Are we going to witness a sitting president in front of a grand jury refusing to answer a question on the grounds it might incriminate him? That's not going to be a pretty picture.
And the president would fight that in court?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. David Weinstein.
Thank you, David.
You're welcome.